Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Wednesday the 14th, Valentine's Day. Is that right? I've got my phone leaning on a frozen bottle of water. This is high level engineering here to get this production out the door. We will not stop until this revolution of revelation is completed, till the people of the world are freed from the artificial perception that has been thrust around them to encapsulate them into a make-believe universe of dribble. What I'm going to talk about this morning is, you'll notice like I've got this on. I'm a glazier. That means I fix windows, I cut glass, I fix anything to do with glass, and I also mirrors are glass, so I do mirrors as well. But the weird story about that is I got into that kind of accidentally. It was just a job. It was a job in the paper, and I went and applied for the job as like an apprentice. And it was the first job I had that wasn't just like a casually type job. Like I worked at Kmart, I worked at Hungry Jack's as like these little, just casual jobs. And then this was a job, I was just looking for a job and basically got in there and went, hey, this is kind of interesting, and never wanted to be a tradesman, never had any interests, but then kind of just got into it and it was good, and then ended up having children quite early, and so it was like, oh, I guess this is going to be a career because I'm already in it, and that was how I went that way. But before that, throughout all my schooling, the thing I was always going to get into was advertising. For some reason, I was obsessed with the idea of advertising. For two main reasons. During that time, the creative thing around advertising was a lot stronger than it is now. There was some of the most creative pieces of media that were coming out were advertising, and because it was just before the internet revolution, in which all that creative stopped making sense. So that was the height, if you could say, that was the height of creative advertising. If you've ever watched Mad Men, you'll know the thing I'm talking about. It's this and the whole dance of that Don Draper character is he sees the art in it, because what I'm talking about is marketing or PR or advertising. It's this, when done properly, when done morally in tune, it is a beautiful thing. It stimulates something within us of like inspiration, and then it's used to, it's like this, it's this like whole system, and this is where I'm going to explain that we've gotten to. In what I consider to be a system, I haven't really heard anyone speak about it, and I have just kind of like not come up with it, but like landed on it this morning. And I believe it's almost like when people talk about the business cycle where we have booms and busts, I think what we're experiencing now is something similar. And you'll have to forgive me because I'm coming up with this as I go. I haven't written anything down. And I'm trying to explain something that's kind of very complicated. So there'll be lots of stalling, lots of suspense, and lots of pondering to try and land on the right words to explain this phenomenon that I've seen. But what I want to do, probably the best way I can do this, and this is where you'll identify that storytelling is a vital part of explanation, of transposing energy between human beings. And then I am practicing constantly the art of storytelling to draw a mental picture, to take you on a journey, to unlock the concepts that I'm trying to explain in a way that will plant and land properly and be absorbed. And then you can explore it. Hopefully, if I can make that leap and implant this seed in your head from my head, if I can do that properly with my words and with my expressions and with my timing and with everything like that, then that is what I'm trying to do. So I'm practicing doing that. Unfortunately for me, I live in a world where a lot of my content doesn't go very far, and so I don't get a lot of feedback. So I have to be my own feedback, and so that's what I do daily. I do this. I try and observe it with the eyes of someone who doesn't understand, and I see if the picture forms properly. But anyway, this is what we're going to do. I want to take you back to like the 70s, and if you weren't in the 70s, which I wasn't, you probably have like some kind of idea about the 70s, and that's okay for the purposes of what I'm going to do. That's enough. So you're a father of 2 or 3. You know, you've got a job, some type of job. You're making okay money. Like you've got a house. You've got the wife's thing. The wife's pretty content. She's doing whatever. The kids have got kind of all the stuff they could want, which was back then was like maybe a basketball and, you know, maybe a bike. That was kind of it. Most of their enjoyment came from them exploring their imagination out in the world with other people, and so the need to fulfill them with clothes or toys or things or video games or things like that was less then. And yeah, a lot of that stimulation they actually found in themselves. And then there was a dance between, they were actually doing this between each other in a fun way, in like a playful way. But anyway, you're the father of 2 or 3, and you're doing everything, you're fine, you're going to work, everything's okay. But there's just something, being a provider, being a man, being a, you know, alpha character, in your, you know that you're bringing home that meat and providing you. There's something just a bit off. Your job's gotten a little bit monotonous. You're realizing that there's not really, you know, maybe the boss above you is the only person above you, and they're not going to leave because they own it. So you've got really no way to explore success or explore exploration or explore attempting to make an improvement in your work environment, which is okay. Like, we can't endlessly all have that, and you know, you're not really into music or anything like that. You don't play sport anymore because you've blown your knee out, and you're kind of like, there's just that thing, that little thing that keeps men going is just gone. It's just not enough, and you're starting to slide slowly down a hill. And you know that your job as a provider is to stay on that hill and stay climbing that hill, and there's just a rope tied to you that's got everyone behind you. You've got your kids, you've got your wife, you've got your parents, you've got your father's, thing, your name, your surname, you've got your country, you've got everything behind you, and you're just feeling it start to pull you down. And there's no solutions, there's no wars, there's no explorations, everything's been found. You're not a scientist, you can't explore science. And this is starting to concern you a lot. It's just a quiet battle that you're having. A quiet little battle with yourself, knowing that if you don't find something to potentially fill this void, then everyone around you is going to suffer. Day by day, just grows a little bit more. One little back, glance from your boss. You spill coffee on your shirt. It starts getting worse and worse and worse. And anyway, one day you find yourself at home. Kids are outside playing, the wife's with the friends at a friend's house. And you turn the TV on. Some show that you're not really interested in, but you're just going to kill some time and just watch it. And then you hear war drums. Like, what is this? What is this? There's a scene on the TV. It's an outback western scene, the sun rising over a horizon. Then the dull synth music. And then words on the screen. Where are you going? Question mark. Where am I going? What's happened here is technology finally, are they speaking to me through the television? It's like they're speaking to my subconscious. How do they know about my internal battle that I have? What have you achieved? Question mark. Nothing. That's the problem. I haven't achieved anything. I do all this and no one appreciates me. I've got nowhere to go. I've got nothing to do. Don't people know that I've got thousands of years of warrior blood running through my fucking veins, and they expect me to stay satisfied in this suburban cage? What's your next chapter? What's my next chapter? For the first time in my life, I don't know what my next chapter is. I've exhausted my environment for challenges, and any other challenges require me to dismantle all this thing, all these people, this job, this person that I have in front of me. There is no way to move in any direction without letting something go. And if you can't let something go, then what do? What do you do? That's it. One single shot. Panning shot, Corvette. Cross the screen, gone. Because you're not in the Corvette. You're just standing on the side of the road and you saw it go past, but you know that someone just like you, probably the same age, maybe lives in the same state as you, somehow they're in a Corvette. then everything starts to make sense. The missing feeling that you have isn't some journey, some exploration. It's not some war. It's not thrusting a knife into another man's neck that will bring you relief from this feeling. It's not some far-off land that you have to find to reignite that flame. It's not some woman, some beautiful, exotic woman that you haven't yet met. No, the answer fell sharply on your screen. The answer is a Corvette. That's advertising. That's marketing. And see, this is what everybody got wrong. The problem wasn't selling more cars. That was one person's problem. And this is where we have come to the bottom of the hill. That whole process now has fallen down to where that particular individual I was just describing was. The whole world marketing, PR economy and system has fallen down from its perky heights where everyone's needs were met. That was the dance of the marketers. That was the role of people who were creative in ways that were not appreciated at the time. It got condensed down to just selling cars. But it wasn't selling cars. It was filling products to the people that would not just be buying products for the sake of products, which is now the meme of like capitalism in the West. And that's because of this process, because it got distilled down to just selling products to whoever. It's like, sell the product to whoever. Do whatever we can. And when we went to numbers, then it just became how many units, how many people, how many active users, how many members, how many just numbers. You put all those people down to numbers. And this is where it's the ironic thing is now we have Mark Zuckerberg sitting in his black shirt and his black thing talking about neural implants with his fucking wank goggles and bagging out his competitor Apple in some type of fucking Steve Jobs fucking puppeteer fucking act. The very person responsible for this crash, for the digitalization of marketing, now thinking that he can sit on a fucking couch and bag out one of the largest, most innovative companies in the world. Like that. Now, Mark has a great product, but that is a disservice to what he's doing. Apple has a great product, and their launch is a disservice to the product because we've forgotten what the whole thing is. A product. We'll go back to the 70s again. We've flown back there, right? There were far less products. There were far less people. The art of marketing was finding the people that would have the biggest benefit from your product, that would make not just a product, not just a purchase, not just something, not just the next thing. It was the thing. The way I mapped it out with the Corvette, it wasn't just my next car. When this one runs out of thing, I'm going to get a Corvette and it will be blue. It was like It's like everything, my life will be exponentially better. This will rescue me from this dark prison I'm left in when I'm finally sitting in that car. And the thing is that the power of this, it's like a lot of people about that, you're conning people into getting something. And it's like, not exactly. When it was done artfully, the experience gained by the person in the Corvette, when that man who went through that process that I explained, when he finally got in that Corvette, when he finally got in behind it, and it wasn't just him watching the car pass him, he was in the car. He'd made it. And that was long lasting. That was like visceral to every cell of his body. That, in that time, perhaps would have got that man through another 20 years of what could have been a lifestyle of absolute just entrapment. He could have, that's the other way he could have gone. As he said, Corvette wasn't selling cars. The simplification down and commodification down to that level is due to this crash. Corvette was selling like hope, was selling a pathway to continue on, was selling an exploration to Antarctica, was selling all the things that now are just not part of our daily lives. And the same thing exists for women. I'm a man, so it's easier for me to connect to that thing of men. But now, down the bottom of this hill, where all the garbage of the world has fallen, it's now just like, I made goggles, and they're better than apples. Go get them. Go get them. You can wank with them. Like, that's, if I was going to sell fucking goggles like that, VR goggles, just fucking say it. You can segment it down to just men. Just be like, MetaQuest Pro, the best wank you've had in years. That's how you sell them. But you can also sketch it out. You could do the same thing, but you're too fucking scared to. Because you know that's you know that's what you've got. You know what they're going to be used for. And all the rest is just hiding it. The answer to sell those things is fucking right there, but it's too risky. But what you don't know is that the Corvette was risky. Everyone else was selling cars like, you know, this car has fucking 4 doors and it won't fucking rust and extended warranty. Seat belts. Look at the seat belts go. Look at that flow. Can you feel the flow there? Down, in, out. Down, in, out. Corvette has the best seat belts around. And that's what these companies tapped into, because they used genius marketers, not numbers. And you, Mr. Zuckerberg, you're stuck in your own little game because you fucking made that game. You, with your mates at Google, you digitized demand. You commoditized demand. And then you felt like you could just make the supply and just fill right into that fucking juicy little demand pocket that you made for yourself. Some would call that a monopoly. If you really sketched it out, you could call it that you're responsible for the destruction of the world. You're responsible for mass depression. Not from this just like social media addiction. It's like, do you know what happened? Social media filled the void that advertising used to fill in a drip form. Like a fucking hit, like a packet of cigarettes. A packet of cigarettes is so addictive because there's always another cigarette. It just lasts. Do you know cigarettes are just that little bit too much? So it's that little bit too much, and then a big gap, and then another one a little bit too much. That's why cigarettes are fucking the most addictive product in the world. And that's what Instagram is. Instagram, instead of having Corvette, something you work towards, where you get this idea and you see yourself in the thing and you get it, and you really do get it and you really do feel it. I've had cars. I've had a car that I wanted and got it and went through that process because I rebuilt it on my own. It actually did come from good marketing. Came from good marketing, but 10 years before I ended up getting that car. And it's not a crazy car. It wasn't a supercar or something like that. It's quite actually an affordable car, but that marketing did such a good job on me that when I got that car, I got it, and there was never a dull moment. I always felt connected with it. It did feel like something else, something I'd worked towards. Whereas what Facebook and Instagram do with their addictive is like they imitate like just constant, like you're constantly searching for your thing, and you get a little glimpse. Little girl here, like a good-looking girl drops up there. Something interesting drops up there. What about this? What about this? And so we're getting stimulated in all these different directions. And that dilutes the whole thing. And that's why we get down to now products that are just like, it's however much the Meta Quest Pro is, like this much, yeah, go and buy it. It makes sense. It does make sense. You're not wrong in what you're doing. You're just, so you may be working in your best interest. You know you've got down to a product that's affordable. It is, I'm saying all this, I agree with you. I probably agree that it's better. I actually thought about it. When I actually processed this in my head and I went, what would I get? I went, yeah, I'd probably get the Quest as well. Okay? So, and I don't really even, and there's only really one reason I'm going to fucking use that thing. And I'm not scared to fucking talk about it. But it's worth it for that. Like, you could sell it on that. But you're not gonna. So, but what you're not doing is you're not mapping out something that's worth thing. And also where you were all missing the mark, and this is where I am constantly, I've tried to get in contact with all of you because I know what's going on. And I want to not just make you all lots of money, I want to make the world better and make people happy again and make people get that feeling and fill that void that you have just erased. Because now it's like honestly, go speak to 20-year-olds, go interview them and be like, what car do you want? They're like, I want a Bugatti, fucking this, I want a Rolex. They're never going to get those things. Ever. Ever. And it's something that happened during my life. It's like we got introduced to this like Need for Speed, all these Gran Turismo, all this shit. We got exposed to all these cars that we couldn't really ever get. Like, I don't know anyone in my life ever that has ever got a supercar. So supercars were okay. I still there's nothing, I liked supercars. I used to watch things, but that wasn't the point. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get a supercar. That's what you've done. So you've either got to start making supercars way cheaper, which you're not going to do, or you have to realize that we've slid down to the bottom of this hill. And what's happening is you're leaving a bunch of people, and mainly what I'm going to talk about here is men, you're leaving a bunch of men feeling unsatisfied and directionless and no hope of anything that they can achieve that is realistic in their lives. And when those men feel like that, when there's enough of them, guess what happens? War. War becomes the adventure. Now, if that's intentional, that's pretty fucked up. But if it's not, then maybe you can see how you may not have invaded Ukraine. But it's not a stretch to think that these, like, if I'm feeling this and I'm in Australia and Americans are feeling this and they're in America, so what do you think a Russian feels like when they're constantly bombarded? All these things, all these Bugattis and fucking supercars and things like that. Russians have a very straightforward, not to be fucked with attitude, and they don't have the wool pulled over their eyes very easily, and so they're drowning in this thing because they have access to it all. They're drowning in all this culture of this. All the women are this. They all look like fucking supermodels. They're all saying we want this, we want that, and you're a Russian crawling your way out of the Soviet Union, driving around in whatever you've got. You build your own, like all these things. It's like that culture is toxic to them. Because of course it is. And it's actually toxic to us all. And it's building in front of us. It is building some type of fucking Hunger Games situation. And the problem is, it's like, that's going to be mass rejected. We are building up immunity to these tricks, to this PR. Because there's a point, the fact of when I mapped out the Corvette, it's like that everything hit at the same time. It's like, that was the answer. They have them right over there. It is this much money. It is going to, I need to do this and this and this to get it. There was a straightforward path to getting this thing. And it was such a big thing that everything could just happen. And that might take 3 or 4 years. But that's what was understood in that thing. It wasn't just like, oh, we've got this, sell it now. Tesla did a way better job in this. So Tesla did build hype, and now that, like, Tesla has a proper release structure, and now Tesla is going into the commoditization process. But it's where, let's go from here to scale matters. Scale matters is expensive. It's fucking expensive. Really fucking expensive. It's going to be really good. It's going to incorporate all the technology from whoever ends up winning the bid to work with me. All that technology, all that motion, projection, VR, pass-through technology that you use to make the goggles, which is actually way fucking harder, you're going to implant into my device, because we're going to work together when we build this. And we're going to make a device that isn't just chucked in a drawer and pulled out for those moments of release. It's going to be used to unify the world under a unified technology. We're not going to have everyone chucking on goggles. There is so many use cases for my product that it's not funny. We need a uniform product that goes around, that fills this void in infrastructure, that opens up everything. It's like you can have it in a class. The obvious use case is like every classroom gets one. So that's divided between 30 or 40 kids. You know what I mean? Every kid gets 10 minutes to go and walk through the fucking pyramids. They're not just looking at it on a thing. It's like that is just, yes, that's why it becomes a thing. Every classroom in the world, at a way higher price point, you make more money. And then you build an entire infrastructure for 5 years into the future. And a lot of it is going to be similar to the VR product anyway. Like a lot of it. It's going to be like multi-use. It's just which form factor do you want to use? And there's like, I actually, because I have a thing, like I want to go live on a sailboat. I'm actually, when everyone talks about pods, I'm like, yeah, bring on the pods. I can't wait. If they're super affordable, like say I could move right now into a fucking pod. Maybe like the size of my jail cell. Just for a fucking example, the jail cell I was put in by criticizing, internet censorship. And it was $100 a week, and it had water and food and a toilet and all these things. I'd be straight there right now. Already, I'd just be like, yep, because it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. I go through my thing. I'm like, yep, I use a fridge, a sink, a fucking bed. That's it. And I sit down and fucking think, I can go and, if I'm in the city, I can go rock climbing, or I can go swimming, or I can go running or cycling or something like that. It's just all easy. It's like, I love the idea of a fucking pod. I always have. I made a pod for myself when I was a kid. I had a gigantic bedroom, because it used to be the lounge room of like an old house that was renovated. It was huge. It had a fucking fireplace in it. The house was old and shitty. It's just, my bedroom was the old lounge room. So full brick fireplace in my bedroom. It's kind of funny to think about now. And we weren't like rich. It was actually a really old house that was kind of small and shitty, but that's just what happened. They renovated it. We drew straws or something like that. For some reason, my mum didn't want to be in there anymore, so I went in there. But even still in there, the first thing I did was I got wardrobes. Remember wardrobes? I actually grew up with wardrobes. these external boxes of clothes that now everyone has built into their house. Like, I had wardrobes, so I put 2 wardrobes and I snuck my bed in behind them, and that was my pod. And then the rest of the room was just an open room, because that's what I wanted. And that's, again, it's like, it's what every guy wants. Basically, you could get every single guy and be like, hey, do you want to live in like basically a jail cell with like a giant rec center attached to it? It's like, yes, every guy wants to do that. Pretty much thing. And it's like probably every woman wants to do that as well. So it's just kind of this whole thing. I've had to live in houses and had to provide this shit. It's like I hated it. I hated every second of it. I paid for a house, rented houses for 15 years, and never once felt like that was my house. Ever. It was just something I had to pay, so I just have to pay this. Most of the time I slept on a fucking couch that was too small. Not because like this wasn't like, it's complicated, because I was proud that I was doing this thing and I was whatever, and just my kids were in the bed and that made more sense. And I didn't want to hurt my kids, so I slept on the couch. It was just like what happened. And so, yeah, unfortunately, you're dealing with someone who did that, and now I'm like, fucking bring on the pods. But, so anyway, in a pod, that's where I'm kind of like, yeah, we're in VR, of course, makes sense. And like, I can see that I'd get fucking attacked for that. And, you know, if Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that, god damn it, he'd probably get chased down with pitchforks. But in the case of people that don't want to have a pod, because I understand that as well, then it's like, the VR is a no-brainer. You're going to have that. I'm not in competition with you. I like to bag out your thing because I'm trying to elevate above it. You know what I mean? Like, people have phones that have a calculator on it, and then people still have calculators. People that need calculators still have calculators. The phone didn't need to really to get it, it just has a calculator in it. You can get a better calculator. That's what I'm trying to talk about. I don't need to compete with you. I just do it because I think it's funny that there's a whole section, basically the whole use case of VR is getting just ignored. And then everybody wins. It becomes this different thing. And people still have VR. And it's like, that's how you do it. Yes, you can put on VR and have the full immersive experience, but you've got something on your eyes and you know that you're not in the world. Okay? It's a slight difference, and I think it does come from the difference between introverted people and extroverted people. Zuck, I'm guessing you're highly introverted. I am not. So the idea, I'm going to do a couple of examples. One of them is dating. If you can take dating, online dating as it is now, which is gross. It's gross, it's fucking weird, it's full of fucking lies and bullshit and catfishing and just weird sociopathic fucking manipulation. Like, it's a real bad thing. If women actually knew what was going on in those environments, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. But this could be instantly streamlined. So you might still scroll on your phone. And then you get someone, you're like, okay, this is this. And then you can meet them straight away in fucking real scale. There's no fucking around. There's no fucking around. There's no... There's normal fucking around. You can still put on a suit. You can, if you're a girl, you can put on makeup or wear fucking thing, whatever, or have good lighting or whatever like this. But it's just straight away you get to pop that bubble of like reality in your own home. So you don't have to go and waste an entire fucking thing a night with someone, because very human interaction, although I do believe there's a pheromone thing that goes on, so this could still probably lead to some weirdness. But I find there is most social thing, there's a dance between body language and movement and speech and sight, and like there's lots of things going on there that are unquantifiable that would get us 80% of the way. And so this means that we end up getting, rather than using it as a pokie machine, which is a slot machine or like a, casino machine, it's like, yeah, it fits more in, and it's not speed dating. It's like you can instantly go from there to there, which is why when people used to go out and pick up, that's what you would do. That you would see someone, and then you go and then talk to them. It should be immediate. Men, and I'm guilty of this, is like men are just building a list that they never end up doing, and it ends up like you're just constantly chasing that next thing that might be better. Men will do that, a bit of that actually in real life, but because you can, you can immediately have an interaction, it's a fuller experience, and I think it will lead to better results. And also it could be like, I see a lot of people are having things with like drinking and even going out. Like going out's kind of gross, it's kind of dangerous. It's like if you don't drink, it's kind of weird. There's a lot of this stuff, but you could literally have a night out where you just got dressed up in your house and you just met 20 people. You could do that at home, and you're really meeting them. You know what I mean? And then you can just you can build etiquette around it. If you don't like someone, you're just kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm just having a night where I just meet people. Nice to meet you. Carry on. Next person. Because you'll immediately know. Rather than getting in some text fucking loop with a picture, which is what most people are doing. And there's no worse feeling than getting some type of thing and then it's just not there for some reason. And so we've got to cut that down. I think it's actually leading to, it's destroying nightlife because people aren't going out. It's like, it just is it's an awkward fucking mess out there. You can tell, you look around, you're like, those people definitely met online. Or they're having their first date because it's just weird. That's one use case. The next use case is teaching. Teaching just unbelievably better in this environment. We're not going to, teaching through VR, although will be useful, you're learning in that world. You're learning in the VR world. You need to learn things in this world. Otherwise, we're going to devolve. You know what I mean? We're going to do that anyway. There's going to be people that just highly are operative in the VR world, and that's okay. People are always going to be extreme in one case or another, but the majority of the world isn't. So we need to have a bridge, and this could be say people who are adapted in the VR world, who are you guys are going to be doing things in there. I'm aware of the fucking scale of your ambitions. You are going to be building I know what you are going to do, whether I want to criticize it or not. But the real world needs to maintain. So if we want to have conversations with someone who lives in that fucking VR world, this is our window, and we say we don't like the VR, this is close enough to have it. You can appear, you know what I mean? You can appear as someone you can appear as your fucking avatar standing there. That's okay. I actually think some of the technologies were going to have to be kind of mixed to get the proper feel. I think it's going to have to be a bit of mixed, avatar mixed, real, I think. But just with the bigger form factor and the fixed devices and the more place for sensors, we should be able to get a more accurate projection. And then, just all the other things factored in. I see mass adoption of VR to be an absolutely dystopian nightmare. I think most people have some type of feeling. I'm looking forward to being pleasantly surprised. Okay, I'm not completely writing it off. But I just think this makes sense as something that can be adopted at a higher use case. So school teachers, any type of instruction, yoga instructions and things like that, it just 100% makes. You can't do yoga with a fucking headset on. Do you get it? Like it's just not. It's. I mean, of course you can. There will be people that prefer to do this, but there is just massive. Like it just becomes unnecessary. If you think you go to a yoga class, you watch the teacher do something and then you're doing something. You're not watching the teacher while you're doing it. You watch her and then you do it. So that can all exist on a large screen. Do you get, like, everything? Say VR assistants, whereas you think, so now this is where we're really going to get. People aren't going to wake up and put their fucking headset on. They're just not going to. Some people will. Okay, I'm not ever talking about those people. Of course there will be people that do that. But say that behind me that you can see, that could just be constantly, that could be my hot fucking VR assistant. She can still hear me. Hey, how do I look in this shot? You're really good. Cool, thank you. Thanks, honey. Maybe we're going down that path, I don't know. It does fucking worry me. I watched Blade Runner, the new one, for the first time, and I was like, holy shit. Like that, I'm actually literally concerned that that's where we're headed. But it just makes sense. It makes sense. It doesn't take up any space. It's a flat fucking screen on the thing. It's like it's the answer. You just haven't seen it yet. That's why I'm trying to sketch it out like that Corvette. You're thinking this, which is cool. It's going to happen. You're already there. You've already built the fucking thing. What you don't realize is you've actually already built this as well. Because all the technology just transfers into it. It's just a different form factor. It's like discovering gold in your backyard. That's, as a kid, imagine every kid, I'm sure, has had this fantasy. So imagine there's buried treasure in my backyard and I didn't even realize it was there. That's what you, at either Apple or at Meta, is sitting on. A huge pile of buried treasure that you did not realize was there. You'd been looking at the world in this way. You've been hyper-focused into Goggle Land, which is cool. That's what makes you guys such high performers in your arenas that you're in. And it takes some crazy person sitting in their shed in the sweltering little tiny house in Australia to point out, hey, do you know you've got a big chest of gold buried in your backyard? And we can just put this together, and this has 1 million more use cases than goggles. It has an adoption process, which means like the acceptance process, which is far easier because everyone already uses screens. It's just simple. It's like, hey, it's like a phone but bigger. It's really expensive. It's like, why is it really expensive? It's like, well, if you understand, then you will pay it. How did it come to develop? Well, this guy didn't even build a prototype. He just basically made 1,000 videos about how this made so much sense to the world and how it was being ignored by the smartest entrepreneurs in the world. And he just kept doing it until everything clicked. The idea of like AI recreations of, say, historical people, which is going to happen. You all talk about that all the time. Slightly weird and dystopian, but slightly also cool. You know what I mean? Think of the great, like Martin Luther King, whoever, JFK, Einstein, great writers, great performers, great actors of the past, able to be in your room. It's like, think of the intimacy. There's a slightly different level of intimacy about it. Can definitely be achieved by the goggles, but there's something so real about. I actually think what it is so if you imagine someone appearing in that screen right now, say Albert Einstein. I get a little ding, I get a little buzzer. I'm like, what is it? It's like, Albert Einstein is in the door for you, or on the screen for you, whatever the fuck terminology comes up with, right? I think for me, what happens is when I walk up to someone, so I'm not just putting something on and they're appearing, okay? All these things matter to do with the human experience. So, I have something there. I walk to them. They're there standing in front of me in the real size in front of me, but they're just behind somewhere that I can't go. Do you understand? So they remain just behind the screen. I'm not a fool, so I know I can't go into that screen because they're just behind it. That is a comfortable way to experience that type of thing. Okay, it is the safe way to experience that type of thing. You are going to go into this arena of VR, of AR, of these things. I know you are, and you are going to have horror stories that you haven't realized yet. And that's your path, mate. This applies to Google and to Meta. That's your journey. You go down that. You go down that perilous fucking thing. You deal with the deaths and the horror stories that are going to come from it. And while you're doing that, help me develop this, which will have a broader range and a safer way, a more consistent framework. You know what I mean? The reason I think you're trying to hack into existence, I'm trying to create an infrastructure that is actually usable. Just purely the thing of like goggles, it's like it's on your face. People are weird about putting other people's things on their face. So sharing becomes a thing, which you've probably gone, well, that's great. That means everyone needs to have a headset. It means we're going to sell more products. We're going to sell more units because everyone's got to have one because people don't like sharing. That's dumb. Sharing is actually a brilliant thing if you're not a moron. If you realize you charge 10 times as much or 15 times as much for a device that just like, because you're putting that money, it's like everything can just be pumped up to the roof. And it's shared. Until like a plasma TV. I sold plasma TVs when they were 20,000 Australian dollars each. And the guy, the salesman that I was doing work experience for, he's like, don't tell anyone, they only last 2 years. I couldn't believe it. It stuck with me the whole time. I was like, holy shit, people literally paid $20,000 for a plasma TV and it lasted 2 years. That's the world. That's how it works. So yeah, and then you get add-ons, like you get a treadmill or something like that. You put your bike next to it. You could put on your VR, still put on your VR goggles, and you could have HHHH 7000D in front of you on your main field of view, with then the VR fills in the rest. There's just a million, a million use cases. But the main factor is it doesn't destroy our world. VR I think we're at a point where if you introduce VR in the wrong way, make it too affordable, which is what you seem to be doing, we're going to lose too much humanity too quickly. I really am concerned about it. Because a lot of people are on the edge right now. A lot of people have it's almost like, where has the Corvette implanted itself in people's minds by doing this thing? There's the thing, there's the answer. I'm going to work and achieve to get this, Your price point and the way you're incorporating this, it's like and the fact that it is going to be used for sexual things, which is the unspoken thing about VR, is for a lot of people, it's like you're just going to ruin their lives. You may as well hand them out crack. And whereas I have like a slightly different thing, because I have lots of, so I can still go, well, yeah, that'll be great, I'll still use that, but I still have the desire to go and do things in the real world. For people that, and that might have been the Corvette, the bald middle-aged guy who's, whatever, he doesn't want to do anything, he's fucking, well, who is he anyway? But then he gets a Corvette, he's that guy with a Corvette. See what I mean? And this could be the same. It taps you into a network of people. So you can buy one of these for 15 grand and it elevates you slightly above the VR people. You're not having just a VR thing like the books, like Snow Crash or something like that. Unfortunately, I do see something very similar to those things happening. But you can have you live in the real world. You may still have your VR in your drawer, but you live in the real world and you have a Scale Matters screen. It's got to have a different name. The Scale Matters maps out the project because it's quite an ambitious thing to go from where I am to thrust this into the universe. I'd like to hear suggestions on the name of the screen. I like the idea of like the door or the screen or the threshold. Threshold, I think, is like a great name for it. Threshold. Yeah, that's it. It's threshold. The threshold. The threshold. You've heard about VR, but have you seen the threshold? It's exclusive. There's something, like, as someone, I can tell you I've had a certain thing of going, and I think this does exist in the world. I think there are secret doors. I think there are special knocks. You know what I mean? Hidden places in our world. And this will be that in the digital realm. The higher price point makes a higher point of entry. And so what it basically does is it differentiates you from someone who's just in the thing buying a VR headset, which we're still going to have. But this just becomes an exclusive place where you can meet people. And you immediately know if you meet someone in this environment, in this threshold environment, you know they've gone and bought a threshold. That's basically what it is. They've prioritized something that is aesthetically beautiful, that's culturally significant, that takes into consideration the delicate dance between the real world and the digital world. And so that is what it is. It's an exclusive product for an exclusive network, for an exclusive world that differentiates itself away from the masses. And I know that's politically not correct to say, but I don't care, because if you've gotten this far, then that's the real thing. And probably, more than likely, it's something that doesn't want to get out too much. It's something that does want to be carefully sold to the right clientele at the right time, with the right networks, in the right way, and something that maybe perhaps becomes a myth to do with everyone else. Oh, have you heard about this? Nah. VR, man. So if you got 59 minutes through, then you have earned the right to see this moment here in which I really say what's going on with this thing. And I look forward to perhaps bumping into you in the threshold world. The world that maintained culture when the world went completely crazy. Thank you.